When it comes to evidence in their argument papers, students have a tendency to mic drop way too soon. Here's my evidence. Boom! You can almost hear them saying it, because right after that evidence, they move on. Oops, that's not what we want. And I bet you've written, be sure to analyze this evidence and explain how it proves your point a few hundred or 1,000 times in the margins. So what do we do? How do we make this idea memorable that students must analyze their evidence before moving on? There are a lot of helpful tricks and acronyms floating around out there. Maybe you've used the quotation burger, the RACE acronym, P. There are a lot of options, and I think those are helpful bases from which to build. But this week on the pod, I want to try a humorous real-world twist that can complement any of these. Something I hope will be memorable for your students. Something you can reference with a laugh and keep your kiddos interested. So with no further ado, meet Mr. Skeptical. Welcome to the Spark Creativity Teacher Podcast, a podcast for English teachers looking for more. More creativity, more engagement, more joy, and no more scripted curriculum, lesson planning ruts, or boring book lists. I'm Betsy Potash, and I'm honored you're trusting me to help. You're not alone on this creative journey anymore. As you may know, if you've been listening this month, we're focused on argument right now because it's our monthly theme over in the Lighthouse. If you're new to the Lighthouse, it's the teacher community where I share all the curriculum I design. So let's talk about adding this real-world context to evidence analysis and argument writing. So first there's the base, right? These ways to think about evidence. The quotation burger, where you introduce a quotation and then you give the quotation your evidence and then you analyze it. And it's like the top bun, the meaty middle, the bottom bun. There's P, where you have your point and then your evidence and then your explanation. There's race, where you have a little bit of a sports twist for your athletes. And in this one, you restate the question, you answer the question, you cite your evidence, and then you explain how your evidence supports your answer. All of these can be helpful in their own ways, as long as you're not completely married to them as the end-all, be-all of analysis as a student. But sometimes even after learning these core principles, students still struggle. And they forget about this concept of explaining, connecting the dots, taking the evidence and actually really clearly linking it back to the point that they've made. So the idea I came up with last month as I was thinking about this is to introduce the idea of a skeptic and to just keep returning to it and return it in funny ways. So imagine you're arguing with somebody out in the world, not in an analysis paper, and they just don't agree with you. They just don't buy your argument. You have some evidence, you keep reading stats or showing them pictures or whatever, and they're just like, yeah, no, I don't think so. I'm unconvinced. I'm skeptical, right? You may know someone like this. You may have a friend like this. Maybe you have somebody who sees something about politics differently than you, and you're like, but look at this. Look at this story. Look at this photo. Look at this whatever. And they're just like, no. Right? So I want you to let students imagine a situation like this, where they're talking to their sister or their teacher, their mom, their coach, and they make a point and offer some evidence, and the person just lifts their eyebrows and sort of glares at them skeptically. So what? They say. What then? That's the question for students. Now is the moment when they have to connect the dots and explain exactly how a piece of evidence proves their point, because their skeptical friend or mom or coach or sister is not going to just automatically agree with whatever they're arguing just because they gave some piece of evidence, especially if it runs counter to what they want to be true or have formerly believed to be true. Now, as I was going to create practice around this idea, I found that it was pretty easy. I thought of a lot of real world situations for students, and so can you. Maybe they're fighting, arguing peacefully with a friend about who the best YouTuber is, or which cafeteria food is best, or what new course the school should adopt, or how much homework there should be every night. They can find evidence for that argument, and they could present it to a friend who sees something differently. And that friend could still be like, no, I think this person is the best YouTuber, even though your amazing YouTuber has a video with 500 billion hits. My YouTuber makes the most ad revenue or whatever, right? They're going to have an alternative viewpoint. And that's when the student has to go that extra mile and connect the dots. They've got a skeptical friend raising their eyebrows and saying, so what? And they have to connect the dots. Now, for me, I went kind of far with this. I made a graphic organizer featuring Mr. Skeptical looking super skeptical. I made posters with 3 different incredibly skeptical looking people on them. I made these little popsicle stick cutouts where you can put up this super skeptical facial expression in front of your face with the popsicle stick under it like a little sort of puppet mask. I made bookmarks with skeptical people saying, I'm skeptical, and hashtag so not impressed. And the idea is to create this just kind of humorous drift in your classroom where when somebody provides evidence, people can reference this idea, right? Eyebrows up, so what? I'm skeptical. And then the arguer has to remember that they need to follow it up. They need to connect the dots. Now, you can practice this with real world situations. You can practice it with text. I also had this idea that it would be pretty fun for kids who are super into YouTube or TikTok or Instagram Reels to create some little videos featuring this character, Mr. Skeptical. And so I had the idea that you could run a quick project. It would really just be 1 day or maybe 2 days, but it would be something that would be memorable, that would help this idea stick in students' minds. And basically, you would assign pairs, and they would make a little video where they argue something. One person is the arguer, and one person is Mr. or Miss or Mix Skeptical. And they can debate and just sort of put this idea into real life. So they'd start by choosing a topic for their little 90-second video. They'd do a little bit of research. And then the first person would try to convince the skeptic with their argument. And the idea would be to play up the humor a little bit. So anyway, my friend, the idea here is just a little lighthearted twist, something that you can drop in to reinforce your main quotation burger or race acronym or P acronym or however you do it to help kids remember evidence analysis. Because over and over again, this is a huge problem. I know you know it. Kids mic drop too soon, and maybe, just maybe, Mr. Skeptical can help. Thanks so much for joining me today to meet Mr. Skeptical. Until next time, take care of yourself and stay creative.